Right, welcome to Fax TV. As you can see, PJ again is not here. Me and his wife are expecting the baby still, and we wish him all the best with that. But currently we're joined by Karl Harrison, Halifax coach. Karl, we're going to get into the Swinton game first.
Excellent.
Bit of a strange game really, a lot of points scored. What do you think of the game? You know, you won by 18 points in the end, but you conceded 30.
I said after the game in the post-match interview then, I don't particularly like games like that. I thought it was a real low-intensity game. A lot of emphasis had gone out of our defensive structures. It was a game we was never in danger of losing, and I just thought a few of our players was probably went through the motions defensively to get the job done, because we're never ever going to get beat in the game. We was too athletic for the opposition, but which is disappointing, which we discussed. For us to win the big games, we need to be intense every week, but we're also not stupid enough to realise we can't play. We've been playing right up there for the last few weeks, so maybe sometimes you have a lull before you go again, and hopefully that's what it was.
You talk about athletic, you know, being the players being athletic. Gareth Potts went 80 metres on Sunday. Yeah, I mean, how well do you think he's been playing recently, last two games?
Gareth's had a stop-start season. He got in the team, he got injured, he got back in the team, got injured again, and he's come back in the last couple of weeks in an unfamiliar position at full-back and played really, really well. So yeah, I'm really pleased with Gareth, but he is a very quick fella.
I mean, Ryan Fieldhouse didn't play last week because of a stomach bug. Was he not selected? Was he ready for selection for the Swinton game, or did you think Gareth Potts had a good game against Whitehaven and deserved to keep his spot?
Ryan was available for selection. He was fit, but I just thought that the previous week against Whitehaven, you know, the all three of the backfield players, Fox, Saxon and Potts, played particularly well, and I thought it would have been unfair. I've always been a coach on loyalty, and you earn the right to be in the team, and it wasn't Gareth's fault Ryan was poorly, but Gareth took his chance to play and played the game extremely well. Whether that changes for this weekend is a different question, but I just felt it was the right thing to do, keeping the same 17 for last week's game.
I mean, we'll get to the game on Sunday in a minute, but just how important is Scott Morrell to this team? I mean, he had a storming game against Whitehaven, and he was influential as ever against Swinton as well. He's
the captain of the team, and a lot of the good things we do come from him. He was poor the other week at Batley, and since then he's got his head down and really worked at his own game. He's our leader and the person everybody within the squad looks to for the energy they require, and yeah, it's a real important part of our machine.
Is Ben Johnston sort of learning a bit off him, because Ben is a young player and he's been playing excellent as well? I mean, you know, do you think the combination between Scott and Ben is working really well, and it's hard for when Simon Brown comes back to get in the team, perhaps? Oh
well, Simon's still out with a broken. He's had the plaster off his thumb now. It should be maybe available this week. Certainly next week it should be available. But Ben and Scott are blending so well because they're totally different. Scott's an organiser, where Ben's a more off-your-cuff type halfback and a runner, and he offers different threats. So he's probably learned a little bit of game management from Scott, but apart from that, no, Ben's very individual, which makes him really hard to defend against.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, looking to the game this Sunday against Dewsbury, you lost their place, but in recent years you've got the better over Dewsbury. I mean, what have you been working on in training this week to make sure you get the victory over a good side?
Some goal line defence. We were very poor against Swinton defending our goal line. I think every time they got in our 20 they scored at the weekend, which is a little bit about the intensity we spoke about previously. We need to complete the sets against Dewsbury, keep the ball on the field, and play at an high fast tempo. But priority is against this team, Dewsbury, who are playing extremely well, having a real good season. We've got to be able to defend their threat, and they've got threats all over the field. And one of our old players who's ripping it up this season, Anthony Thackeray, playing really, really well.
I mean, Dewsbury are doing well, as you said there. Is there sort of one eye on the Featherstone game in a few weeks' time, because that could determine who finishes second at the end of the day?
No, we've not. To be honest, the people out of the small group we've got are probably talking about Featherstone, but to us that means nothing at the moment, because if we don't do the business against Dewsbury, or against Swinton or against Whitehaven, the Featherstone game won't matter. We've got to look no further than this weekend's game, and that's all we are doing.
I mean, for Dewsbury, they've got Glenn Morrison at the helm there. He's doing really well, and with the new structure coming in next year, do you think that clubs like Dewsbury can make the step up and challenge and make it into that middle eight that's going to brought in next season?
It's going to be tough for everybody to get into that middle eight next season. Obviously, the top 4 of the middle eight are Super League clubs who'll come down, and then it'll be the top 4 of the 12. And at the moment, we're going to have 3 full-time teams in that. For starters, in London, Bradford will both be very, very strong, and Lee, we know what they've done this season. They will be very strong, all full time. So we're probably all the rest of the clubs are probably scrapping for one spot, which we've seen how tough the competition has been this season. How hard it's going to be getting to that 8 next season is it's going to be a massive ask, but that's what we need to do.
There's a few games left in the regular season now, and we're fastly approaching the playoffs. I mean, how do you, as a coach, prepare for the playoffs? Do you start resting players and perhaps rotating players, or is it all about playing your best team week in, week out and gathering momentum going into Knockout Rugby League?
In recent years, we've been able to sort of rest players and get people ready for the playoffs. But this season, it's a little bit different because the teams we're playing are all scrapping for something to stay in this division for starters, and we're scrapping ourselves to get that second spot because of the financial rewards off the back of it. So we intend to play our strongest team whenever possible.
Absolutely. And Karl, we just looked at the games there, and this week the fans have been writing in for their questions for you on the forums, and we've got a couple for you now. And Karl, your favourite position during a game was high up in the stand for quite a number of times, and for the last few games you've been in the dugout, haven't you? And that seems to improve results. I mean, or has it? I mean, do you think being down there on the ground is better than being up there in the stands?
A couple of reasons for that. Just for a change, I've always flitted as a coach between the terracing and sideline. I just preferred the sideline. Maybe because the sun's out recently and I can get a bit of a suntan down there. And secondly, when I was on the gantry, certainly at home games, I was getting a lot of personal abuse, which I didn't like. So that's one of the reasons I'm on sideline.
That's fair enough then. Bradford, who are coming down, as you mentioned, they've started to recruit some players and re-sign some players for next year. How are plans for recruitment and retaining your own players going for next season?
Very well. We've not made any great moments press-wise, but recruitment and retention's going real well. We've got a list of players we want to retain, and most of them have already in the process of being spoken to, and we've started recruiting from elsewhere. But I think it's wrong to mention, it's not fair on the players who are here and the other clubs that we're bringing in and their clubs to show disrespect and name them names. So we'll do our business in public when the season's finished.
As we mentioned there, the new league structure comes in next season with the 3/8s. What is your personal opinion on it? Do you think it's good for the game, or do you think it's not so good for the game?
I'm unsure. It seems an exciting format. How fair it is, I'm unsure. Certainly that middle group of 8, it seems vastly unfair to get promoted to the Super League. If you get that middle group of 8, you're playing against 4 full-time teams who are on maximum salary cap of 1.8 million, where we could be in there with a salary cap, or certainly a spend cap of 300,000. Now that's nearing impossible to beat them teams. So it's going to be interesting to see. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. But I do think the league had to do something regarding promotion and relegation. At least now there's something there we can see to climb to and achieve in a few years, and maybe to take that next step.
Do you think it's fair that Super League clubs have a bigger salary cap than the Championship clubs for next season?
I don't think it's unfair, because all the best players should be playing in the elite competition, which they are, and the elite players need paying, and they're paying likewise. They play the toughest sport in the world, and they need paying. I do think that the gap between them, spend-wise, is a little bit too great, to be honest, to make it more fair, but that's all been agreed by the people who make the rules, the powers be, and it is what it is. We've just got to do what we have to do.
Now, you worked under some great coaches in your time as a player. Which coach for you was your biggest inspiration, when you made the step up to become a coach?
Probably when I left Featherstone, I had a great coach at Featherstone, Peter Fox, and then I left there when the freedom of contract came in with the Bosman ruling many years ago, and I went to join Hull FC where Brian Smith was coach, and he sort of changed my philosophy on the game and probably started to think about the game a little bit more rather than just turning up and playing. He actually got us to think about it, and that's probably where I've got my inspiration to be a coach from.
Do you still sort of ask your fellow peers for some advice, perhaps, you know, people you've worked with in the past?
Absolutely, and people I've not spoken and not worked with too. I've always been one for sharing ideas and talking, not being scared to ask questions of people I respect, to get their opinions of see if we're doing things right. And I think it's advanced me as a coach that I've asked them brave questions. Some people don't like to show weakness by asking tough questions, and I've always asked the people I respect questions which I thought needed asking.
And finally, from the fans forum questions, most clubs have a parent club in the dual registration system. Halifax don't have one. Do you think that's perhaps paid off for Halifax as a club going forward?
I think it has. I think morally, as a club, if you want to advance, you shouldn't be linked with another club. You should be your own club through rights, and we've been able to do that, which I'm very proud of. When I was at Batley, we used to use 2 dual reg players from Huddersfield, but the dual reg, as we've seen this weekend, is going to come out in the press this week about dual reg rule breaks this weekend, which could cost clubs valuable league points. What's going to happen? I can understand why clubs do it, but again, it's making the competition unfair. People getting Super League quality players playing their team, not every week, but just when their mother club thinks it's right for them. So that has a bearing on league positions and league points. And you know, people keep expecting Doncaster to drop away, but they've used the dual registration system extremely well. We've got an ex-Hull FC coach, stroke player, Paul Cook there, and Doncaster is like Hull FC's feeder club. It's academy club, to be truthful. They use all the same calls, use all the same players, and therefore get the benefit of using the Hull FC players when they come in. Some high quality ones, you know, Millers and Cruxes of the world. Rich Whiting's been there all season, so they get, and that's why they've not dropped away, because Doncaster have been real smart. Other clubs like Batley have struggled with the dual reg this season because of they were sort of promised 5 players at the start of the season from Huddersfield, and that's not materialised. So they recruited a small squad relying on the Huddersfield players, and they've not had them. So it's how you manage it, but I'm just real happy we're capable of running our own squad, and that's what I'm really pleased with.
Because I mean, against Swinton on Sunday, you know, they had a number of players from Warrington on dual registration, had like Kevin Penny and Brad Dwyer. And do you think perhaps some squads, teams have to rely on them because they don't have, you know, the squad depth to produce their own? And you know, but like for Halifax, for instance, you've got that depth to rely on other players to come in. Yes,
I think it's sad for the game that there's no. That everybody in the competition does not have a reserve squad for starters. Now, we're producing quite a few players here who are pretty close to playing first team football from our juniors. Macaulay Higgins and Joe Martins are close. Keith Holden's already jumped up on board. Sam Brooks, and these are all coming from our academy teams. And it's tough when Swinton's an historic club, but they've got no resources through whatever reasons, and it's tough for them. It's hard for us to prepare to play against them because we don't know what we're playing until we get to the game, because they don't announce their squad until game day, so it's really hard for us to prepare as well. I just think it's sad for the game that there's not a reserve fixture.
And finally, Karl, looking into Sunday's game again, how important would a big crowd here be this year for, you know, to inspire the lads to get a win again?
Oh, it's always nice to play as a player. It's always nice to play in front of lots of people, and it's been an exciting season this season, and a lot of people who have not been have missed out on some great rugby league. And I'm sure if they come down and get a sniff, they'll come back, and it becomes an habit. Going to sporting venues becomes an habit, and you need to keep going week in, week out. Otherwise, if you get out of that habit, you soon stop. And it's been their loss, because it's been a real exciting season with some entertaining stuff.
Well, hopefully there'll be a big turnout this Sunday this year for the Dewsbury game. And thank you, Karl, for your time, and thanks to all the fans for posting their questions on the fans forum. And make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you. Goodbye.